Okay, so imagine waking up tomorrow morning, right? You pull out a standard box of paints, and you suddenly discover a brand new primary color.
Like a completely new base color.
Exactly. Not some, subtle shade of blue you've never quite noticed before,
Mm.
or like a clever mix of yellow and red. I mean, a completely new foundational base color that just fundamentally breaks your entire understanding of the color wheel.
You'd probably look at it and think, well, that's impossible. We've already found all the primary colors.
Right, because we just assume the map has been fully drawn.
Yeah.
So welcome to the deep dive. We are taking a massive stack of sources today. We've got articles analyzing music history, some really dense research papers on streaming algorithms and cultural incubation studies.
And we are distilling all of that down to its most fascinating core.
Yeah, because our mission today is to explore that exact feeling of discovering a new primary color, but entirely in the realm of sound. We're looking at a pretty fascinating and honestly somewhat uncomfortable question raised by the material you shared with us today.
Which is whether the South African music style known as Amapiano is basically the absolute last completely new global music genre humanity will ever create.
Which, I mean, saying it's the last global genre feels so dramatic at first glance.
It is a really bold premise. But to really examine it, the sources force us to look at this intersection of music history, the actual mechanics of algorithmic streaming, and how human culture actually incubates.
Because we're exposed to new artists every single day, right?
Yeah.
We see this endless cycle of micro trends and new TikTok sounds.
Viral dances, all of that.
Yeah, exactly. But the creation of an entirely new musical language, like one that arrives with its own unique rhythm, its own distinct physical dance styles, production techniques, and its own offline culture, that massive engine of creation seems to have just ground to a halt.
It really has. And diving into these sources, the case they build is incredibly compelling. The premise here is that Amapiano might actually represent the final, truly global genre of the internet age.
And before we can even understand why it might be the last, I think we have to look at why the machinery that used to create these distinct, capital G genres has basically fundamentally broken down over the last decade.
Right. So if we zoom out and look at the historical pattern of music over the 20th and early 21st centuries, there's a very recognizable rhythm of bold, distinct sonic revolutions.
Like massive shifts.
Exactly. Think about how jazz gave way to rock, which gave way to disco. And then you have hip-hop, house, techno, drum and bass, dubstep. Each of those decades introduced something genuinely radically different to the global stage.
And the defining feature of those movements was just their undeniable identity. I mean, if you're listening right now, imagine dropping a needle onto a dubstep track in 2010.
Oh yeah, you'd know instantly.
Right. Or a disco track in 1978. You only needed about 5 seconds of audio to know exactly where you were in the cultural landscape.
Because the rhythm, the specific synthesizers, or, the brass sections, the fashion surrounding it, the clubs that played it, it all arrived as this unified, recognizable package.
It was a holistic cultural shift.
Exactly. But now, compare that environment to the reality of how we consume audio today. Spotify currently holds well over 100 million tracks on its servers.
100 million.
It's staggering. More music is uploaded to streaming platforms in a single day than any human being could possibly listen to in an entire lifetime.
Which, honestly, naturally brings up a major contradiction.
Yeah.
I mean, on behalf of you listening right now, you might be thinking, wait a minute. If we have 100 million tracks, plus infinite cheap access to high-end production software that anyone can just run on a laptop in their bedroom,
Right.
shouldn't that sheer volume of musical output mean we are creating more genres than ever before in human history? Like, why do popular internet sounds like hyperpop or drip funk or those sped-up Brazilian funk edits, why do those not count as true revolutions?
So the distinction the sources draw here is really vital. We have to separate an internet edit, or like a hybrid mutation, from a ground-up sonic revolution. Take hyperpop, for instance. It is essentially taking existing pop music tropes, cranking the auto-tune, and deliberately glitching the audio to an extreme, abrasive degree.
Right, it's an aesthetic choice.
Exactly. Or drift funk. That takes old, dark Memphis rap vocals from the 90s and layers them over heavy, distorted cowbells, usually to soundtrack car grifting videos online.
Yeah, I've seen those all over TikTok.
Right, and these are highly specific sounds, but they are built entirely by mutating existing source material.
So they're basically using the same primary colors we already have, just aggressively mixing them together in a digital blender.
That is a perfect way to put it. The internet has given us thousands of incredibly niche labels and infinite access to historical sounds, but having 1,000 mashups does not equal a cultural movement.
It's just noise, basically.
Yeah, instead of bold new genres, the internet produces this endless sea of tiny subgenres: lo-fi house, Jersey Club remixes, Afro house hybrids. The internet has massively accelerated the evolution of music, but it has drastically slowed down true mutation.
And the main culprit driving that slowdown is the recommendation algorithm, right?
Absolutely.
Let's really get into the mechanics of that, because it is fascinating how the actual software shapes the art itself. Streaming platforms are businesses,
At the end of the day, yeah.
and they optimize for one metric above all else, which is user retention.
Retention dictates everything. Modern listeners have been so conditioned to skip an unfamiliar song within, 3 to 5 seconds if it doesn't immediately grab them.
We've all done it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And in the streaming economy, if a user skips a track before 30 seconds have played, the song often doesn't even count as a monetized stream.
Wow, so the artist doesn't get paid.
Exactly. Therefore, these recommendation engines are mathematically trained to avoid radical innovation. They do not reward the unknown. They reward familiarity.
Because they can't risk you leaving.
Right. The algorithm actively suggests things that sound mathematically similar to what you already know, because that minimizes the risk of you closing the app.
It's acting like a sonic comfort blanket. It isn't trying to challenge you with a new rhythmic structure. It just wants to keep you docile and engaged on the platform so they can serve you ads.
That's the business model.
And this creates a basically suffocating ecosystem of algorithmic sameness. Every new sound is immediately categorized, remixed, sped up for a video, and homogenized.
It's a highly controlled environment.
Which is exactly what makes this sudden, undeniable explosion of this one specific sound from South Africa such an absolute anomaly.
Yeah, Amapiano somehow managed to completely bypass that entire homogenization process.
Now, let's look at where it came from, because its survival seems directly tied to its origins. It didn't emerge from the traditional, heavily funded major music hubs, right?
Not at all.
It wasn't cooked up in an expensive studio in London or Berlin or Los Angeles
Yep.
by producers trying to, reverse engineer a Spotify playlist.
No, the roots are firmly planted in Johannesburg, Pretoria, and the broader South African townships. It is so crucial to understand that it was not created by superstar producers backed by major labels.
It was completely grassroots.
Completely. It grew organically from local street parties, from the massive culture surrounding South African minibus taxi ranks, from community DJs, and from neighborhood dance scenes over several years.
And the musical architecture of it is just so brilliant. It took familiar local ingredients like kwaito.
Right, the 90s style.
Yeah, which is a slower, heavily bass-driven house music style that came out of Johannesburg back then. And it combined that with elements of jazz, deep house, and vocal harmonies. But it put them into a structure that felt completely alien to everything else.
It really did.
And the absolute centerpiece of this new architecture is the iconic log drum.
Oh, the log drum. The mechanics of how Amapiano producers repurposed that specific sound represent a genuine paradigm shift in electronic music.
How so?
Well, in almost all traditional electronic dance music, the percussion, so the kick drums and the hi-hats, they drive the tempo, while a separate synthesizer bass line provides the actual musical groove.
Right, that's standard.
But in Amapiano, the log drum isn't actually a physical wooden instrument. It is a very specific, synthesized bass thump, often created using digital presets.
Oh, interesting.
But instead of just using it for a rhythmic thud, producers pitch shifted it up and down. They turned this thick percussive hit into a melodic instrument.
So you have this heavy percussion instrument actively pitching up and down to form a complex melody.
Yes.
It honestly feels like the rhythm guitarist in a rock band suddenly stepping up to the microphone and just taking over the lead vocals. Like the percussion literally became the harmony.
That's exactly what happened. And even more surprisingly, the space between the notes, the actual silence, became the rhythm.
I noticed that when listening to the tracks and the sources.
Yeah, a heavy emphasis on negative space is a real hallmark of the genre. Most electronic dance music, especially in this internet era we're in, relies on constant, relentless, high BPM energy to just keep your attention.
Because of the skip rate we talked about.
Exactly. But Amapiano intentionally dials the tempo down. It often hovers around 112 beats per minute.
Which is pretty slow for dance music.
Very slow. It leans into incredibly long intros, spacious arrangements, and these patient, simmering builds that can take minutes to develop.
Minutes. In the TikTok era.
Right. It didn't just change the physical way people danced in the townships by forcing a slower, more deliberate groove. It fundamentally changed how people listened. It demanded patience from an audience in an era where patience is virtually extinct.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if a song blows up globally today, we automatically just brand it a TikTok song. That's just the default assumption now.
Sure.
And because Amapiano is so massive on social media right now, you listening might naturally assume it was just another fleeting internet trend designed for 15-second videos.
Yeah.
So how did it avoid that trap?
Well, the assumption that TikTok birthed or even creatively shaped Amapiano is the most common misconception the sources point out. The reality is that social media algorithms dramatically accelerated its global reach,
Right.
but they absolutely did not invent its culture.
The roots were planted completely outside of the digital ecosystem.
Deeply outside of it, the highly specific dance moves, the unique fashion choices, the localized slang that's incorporated into all the lyrics, and the tight-knit community of underground DJs sharing tracks via USB drives.
Literally handing each other flash drives.
Yeah. All of that developed offline for years before the broader internet took notice. Amapiano incubated in the physical world. It built its foundation in real, sweaty clubs with real people reacting to the DJ in real time.
So they were communicating what worked and what didn't through their physical movement on the dance floor, not through likes or comments.
Exactly.
So it possessed an inherent authenticity. Because algorithms are incredible at amplifying things, but they're physically incapable of inventing authenticity.
That is the core difference. When viral sounds begin online today, they often feel hollow because they lack a physical point of origin. There is no real community backing them, just a disparate group of users sitting behind screens in different countries.
It's totally disconnected.
Right. Amapiano began completely offline, built an impenetrable fortress of cultural identity over half a decade, and then it conquered the online world.
Because it was forged in that slow, offline crucible, it developed an identity so distinct that the moment it finally hit the global stage, absolutely everyone recognized it as something new.
You didn't need a music theory degree to know you were listening to Amapiano.
No, it possessed what the sources call an audible identity.
Just like the global reactions to disco or techno or dubstep in their respective eras, you hear the tempo, the spaciousness, and that pitch-shifted log drum, and you instantly know, okay, this isn't deep house,
Right.
this isn't Afro house, and it isn't Jukam, which is another South African genre known for being much darker and faster. Amapiano requires zero explanation.
And that level of immediate, undeniable sonic identity is increasingly rare today.
It is, because almost all producers globally are fishing from the exact same digital ponds now. They are using the exact same splice sample packs, the exact same digital audio workstations, the exact same synthesizer plugins.
Which introduces a massive, honestly slightly terrifying paradox about the internet age.
Oh, the connectivity paradox.
Yeah, the very same global connectivity that allows us to stream music from a township in Pretoria straight to our phones in London or New York. That might be the exact mechanism preventing the next new genre from ever being born.
The paradox of global connectivity is central to this entire thesis. Think about the specific environmental conditions that allowed Amapiano to mature.
Okay.
You had local isolation, years of slow trial and error, a geographic community that felt deep ownership over the sound, independent creators, and above all, time.
But today, time and isolation basically do not exist.
No, they don't.
The conditions that allowed Amapiano to gestate are rapidly disappearing everywhere. Now, the literal second a producer in a small town stumbles upon a weird, compelling new rhythmic pattern, it is uploaded, copied, monetized, and globalized before the day is even over.
The sheer speed of the modern internet actively prevents local scenes from developing their own musical languages.
It moves too fast.
Way too fast. If a kid in a basement creates a unique beat on Tuesday, by Wednesday morning, a major producer halfway across the world has downloaded the stems.
The isolated drum and vocal tracks.
Right. They've sped them up to match a TikTok trend, slapped a recognizable pop vocal over it, and released it. Once everyone can copy a new sound instantly, nobody truly owns it.
Because the culture never gets a chance to solidify in the physical world.
Exactly. Global connectivity, paradoxically, reduces global diversity by forcing everything into a blender immediately.
It sounds like the internet functions like a hyperspeed digital greenhouse.
Yeah, that analogy.
Yeah, it takes a raw, weird musical seed and forces it to sprout instantly under these intense algorithmic heat lamps. But because it is forced to grow so incredibly fast, the plant never develops the deep, complex root system it needs to become a massive, sturdy tree.
It's too fragile.
Right. It just gets harvested immediately as a quick remix, consumed for a few weeks, and then completely discarded as the algorithm demands the next seed.
The soil simply doesn't have time to enrich the plant. And if we look at the trajectory of music production over the next few years, we have to introduce the ultimate hyperspeed variable to that greenhouse.
Artificial intelligence.
AI.
If the internet is a hyperspeed greenhouse, generative AI is basically a 3D printer just instantly printing out fully grown plastic plants.
That is exactly what it is. Generative audio models can now instantly produce a highly passable house track, a techno beat, a trap instrumental, or, ambient study music.
It takes seconds.
But we have to fundamentally understand what AI is actually doing behind the scenes. AI is purely a prediction engine. It only learns from the past.
Right, it doesn't create out of nothing.
No, it analyzes millions of existing data points and calculates what audio frequencies should logically come next based on what humanity has already recorded.
So it can perfectly replicate the surface-level sound of a genre, but it has no mechanism to replicate the friction of human life that caused the genre to exist in the first place.
That is the crucial point. Genres are not merely collections of audio frequencies and drum patterns. They are living social movements.
They're physical neighborhoods.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are arguments between rival DJs trying to one-up each other at a block party. They are identities forged in direct response to economic hardship or systemic oppression or overwhelming community joy.
Like how Detroit created techno as a reflection of its industrial landscape.
Right. And Chicago created house music and underground gay and black clubs as a safe haven. Kingston created dub out of the physical limitations of their sound systems, and South Africa created Amapiano.
So AI models cannot generate a culture.
They cannot. They cannot experience the human friction, the struggle, or the physical joy required to invent a completely new way of moving and living.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you navigate your day-to-day life? I mean, if geographic isolation is dead and generative AI can instantly mimic any existing sound on command, where does music and culture broadly go from here?
The sources suggest this should really force us to deeply reflect on our own daily consumption habits. Look at your own streaming playlists. How much of the media and culture you consume daily is instantly globalized, algorithmically smoothed out content?
It's a great question.
Are the recommendation engines silently shaping your personal tastes toward familiarity? It raises the question of whether we are willingly being spoon-fed sonic comfort at the expense of challenging true innovation.
We have transitioned from a rich history of distinct, decade-defining musical revolutions into a remarkably flat era of algorithm-driven microgenres designed purely for user retention.
And Amapiano managed to break that mold through years of patient, offline community building.
It essentially operated as a massive, beautiful glitch in the modern digital matrix.
Which brings us to the really unsettling conclusion proposed by the researchers. Is Amapiano truly the last global genre?
Do we ever get another one?
Well, history generally tells us to be highly skeptical of absolute predictions. Humanity is endlessly creative.
Always finds a way.
Right. But it is very likely the last genre born under conditions that no longer exist. The specific conditions of local isolation and slow cultural gestation before AI and algorithmic optimization completely dominated our listening habits.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought drawn directly from the research we analyzed today.
Go for it.
If there is going to be another great cultural revolution in music, a true capital G genre that shocks the world, it probably won't be loud at first. It won't be heavily marketed by a tech company, and it certainly won't go viral on its first day.
It will likely be incredibly quiet. It will have to be hidden somewhere completely offline, incubating in secret for years, entirely out of the view of algorithmic recommendation engines.
It will need the dark, unmonitored dirt of the physical world to slowly build its roots.
And when it finally does break through the surface and arrive on the global stage, we won't know how to categorize it.
We don't have a pre-existing label for it at all. We will simply stare at this brand new primary color on the palette, completely stunned, and we'll all say exactly what we said when we first heard Amapiano.
I have never heard anything like this before.
Because ultimately, tracing the evolution of music is never just about studying audio frequencies. It is always about trying to understand the resilience and creativity of humanity itself.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your ears open and maybe spend a little time offline looking for those new colors. See you next time.